Chapter 4. Conditions. The large hand strangled Damon Burnett's neck, squeezing straight into his eyes, flushed red, eyes showing. He felt the slightest force of this hand. His neck would be broken with a bang. Inadvertently swept Clarence Lester's eyes, those eyes cold and heartless, as if human life were in his eyes like a cat or a dog. "I'm sorry. I was wrong." Damon Burnett did not dare to joke with his own life and hurriedly begged for mercy. The hand on his neck was slightly loosened, and his whole body sat down on the ground, no longer daring to say a harsh word. Grandfather saw such an indisputable grandson angry. "Come on, what's the sense of all decency and all this noise? Say, what exactly do you want before you leave, Martina? I came to your demands as long as they are not excessive." Kiara Burnett looked at Clarence Lester standing in front of Martina Burnett. Could not help but have a headache. He thought Clarence Lester was a persimmon to be taken. Now it seems to be bleeding a lot. Clarence Lester does not want to fall out with the Burnetts, which is Martina's family. He didn't want to make things difficult for Martina Burnett because of himself. Since I married Martina, I will make a good life for her, and I can guarantee that marrying me, Martina will not be worse off than anyone else. If you don't believe me, you can give me a chance to prove to myself that I, Clarence Lester, am not inferior to anyone in West End. Kiara Burnett sneered. "Promise? What kind of guarantee do you take? You're just an orphan, and you think you're so serious because you have been a soldier for 2 years? Chance. Don't blame me for not giving you a chance. Here's the deal. We the Burnetts have always wanted to cooperate with the ex-Trump group. If you can get ex-Trump group no less than $30 million within 10 days, what's the harm in admitting your marriage to Martina at that time? Ex-Trump Group is one of the largest companies in West End, and the Burnetts not even qualified to carry the shoes of others, not to mention cooperating with them. Kiara Burnett is to deliberately make things difficult for Clarence Lester so that he knows that the door to the Burnetts is not so easy to enter. It's a deal." Clarence Lester took Martina Burnett out of the Burnett's villa, with Martina Burnett's eyes in tears, as if she could cry at any moment. "Clarence Lester, I'm sorry. I don't think they would do that. I'm so useless I can't even influence my own wedding. Didn't Grandpa say that he would acknowledge our relationship as soon as I got the ex-Trump group partnership?" The tears in Martina Burnett's eyes finally became unbearable. "That's the ex-Trump group. They are simply difficult." As a West End native, how could she not know about the ex-Trump group? That's a huge thing. It is impossible for ordinary companies to get involved with it. Their orders are basically held in with a few of West End's giants. Trust me, I can do it. Martina Burnett did not seem to hear his words. "By the way, I have a classmate who seems to work at the ex-Trump group. I'll ask her and see if she has any ideas." She was so concerned that she only thought about how to solve this problem to make the Burnetts recognize Clarence Lester's identity. The two returned side by side to Martina Burnett's home. The Burnett's villa is where her grandfather lived. Several brothers have long been separated. Martina Burnett home in a very old commercial house. But Frida Burnett's only let Martina Burnett inside alone. Clarence Lester had expected this and gave Martina Burnett a reassuring look to put her at ease. "I'll go back first. You talk to your aunt properly." Martina Burnett couldn't resist her mother, so she had to. The most pressing task now was to get the Burnetts to acknowledge Clarence Lester's identity. She went back to her room and then started contacting her classmates. Clarence Lester, on the other hand, returned to Penkirk. Although away from Lindau, but the master's ability to spread throughout the country, he casually dialed the phone. "Have the owner of the ex-Trump group come see me." Within a few moments, a slightly blessed middle-aged man entered Clarence Lester's room, in fear and trepidation. With a poof, he knelt down on the floor. The person who controls the ex-Trump group is naturally not an ordinary person. He had inquired about this person's identity long before he came. King of Lindau, the name that killed out. Facing such a big man, he couldn't control his body. The master. Get up and talk." King Black struggled for half a day before he stood up from the ground. His thoughts simply couldn't calm down, wondering what this big man had called him for, and if he had offended this great man somewhere. "Tomorrow, my wife Martina Burnett will go to ex-Trump group to talk about cooperation. Whatever she says, you have to receive it well." At that, King Black froze for a moment, and then wild joy surged to his heart. How many people wanted to get in touch with this person but could not? The master, Don't worry, leave this matter to me. I will do whatever Martina says. Even if she wants my ex-Trump group, I will never frown at it. Yeah. After King Black left, Clarence Lester's expression slowly became gloomy. I've been back for more than 10 days, and I haven't visited you guys yet. He walked out of Pencorth, and outside the door stood an imposing, strong man, none other than Mauricio Stark. Didn't I tell you I'll handle West Wind on my own? Mauricio Stark's face took on a sarcastic expression. Shocker! Let me follow you. Clarence Lester didn't say another word, and got straight into Mauricio Stark's car. The Lesters' mausoleum. On the way, Clarence Lester's thoughts fluttered. The Lesters' past came back to him one by one. 10 years ago, the Lesters were on top of the families in West Wind, and he, Clarence Lester, was a flamboyant and charming man who lived a happy life. But it was all ruined by that woman, Adelia Wheelers of the Wheelers, father's confidant. She knew that the Lesters had prospered because of a painting nominated by the Lord himself. The West End Wheelers. For the sake of this painting, she set up her grandfather's bed when her father brought her home as a guest, and the 70 or 80-year-old man's reputation was ruined. At the same time, she joined forces with several families to exert pressure on the Lesters, and her father was so desperate that he believed her bullshit at the time, causing the Lesters to be divided up overnight. The father was so angry that he jumped from the 20th floor. Afterwards, Clarence Lester was kidnapped and tortured to ask about the whereabouts of West End Wheelers. Clarence Lester really did not know, so when he was dying, he was thrown into the deep woods. By the time he returned, the Lesters had disappeared from West Wind, and none of the Lesters' dozens of family members survived. The car came to the Lesters' mausoleum, which was before the prosperous, the Lesters, and after a fire became a barren land. A few lonely graves stand alone in that. The world no one to listen to them cry. Clarence Lester knelt in front of the graves. Grandfather, father, mother, don't worry. I, Clarence Lester, will definitely bring the heads of my enemies to pay tribute to you. Chapter 5. Congratulatory Gift. West End and the Wheelers. The lights are on and the glasses are being pushed. It was the birthday of the Wheelers' grandfather, who had entered the top 4 gentry in the West Wind a few years ago, and the people who befriended them could line up from West Wind East Street to West Wind West Lane. James is giving away a Rolls Royce. Lucas gave 20 gold bars. Mr. Wang is giving away a Mercedes-Benz. The voice of the announcer at the door was one after another, and Jason Wheelers was sitting in the middle of the hall laughing from ear to ear. He is more than 80 years old, but his body is very healthy. His face is full of red, spirited, and constantly talking to new people around him about something. The Wheelers' half today's scene cannot be separated from his control. The Burnett's is also among the congratulatory people, but he can't stand in front of Jason, can only send a gift to express their feelings. Kiera Burnett's is also on the gift dare not neglect, enough to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. West Wind, the Lesters send boxes. The words of the announcer could not proceed. Which congratulatory gift to send a box? What's inside this? Open it and see. What's inside here is for Grandpa to see for himself. Clarence Lester, wearing a mask, walked to the door carrying a 4-square box. The announcer had heard of any other big family named Yee in West Wind, and his face was very ugly. The gift should be given to us to see first. What if it contains any dangerous goods? Hurry up and open it. Clarence Lester did not move and stood there quietly, which soon caused a commotion. What's going on? Why don't you go in? They have come to give a gift. What is so shameful about the gift? Hurry up and open it. That's right. The gift must be personally seen by the Wheelers' master. Hurry up and open it. Let's see what the treasure is. The commotion at the door soon caught Jason's attention in the hall. What's going on? The announcer hurriedly and respectfully came forward. There is a strange man at the door. Congratulation gift in the box. Must come to your face before giving open. Jason laughed straight. Then just let him in. I'm afraid. Jason swept a few guards around him without thinking. Let him in. He can't make any waves by airing him out. Clarence Lester walked into the hall step by step. He was wearing a mask, none of the people recognizing him. Jason's 18th birthday. Yi Mao specially presents a gift. I hope Grandpa likes it. With a boom, the box in Clarence Lester's hand fell in front of Jason's face, startling the crowd. Unbridled! Who told you to give a gift like that? This is the Wheelers. No room for such arrogance. A 20-something-year-old, the Wheelers man pointed at Clarence Lester's nose and cursed. Clarence Lester smiled and didn't reply. Please, Grandpa, open the box. Jason Wheelers frowned. He vaguely had a bad feeling, but did not know where the feelings originated. Thud! The lock on the box was opened by Jason, revealing only a gap, and Jason looked like he had seen a ghost. He took 3 steps backward and landed on the chair. Who are you? Why do you harm the Wheelers' children? The people next to him hurriedly opened the box, and after just one look, dry heaves rose up. Isn't this Jason's favorite little grandson? How did he? Inside the box was a human head, neatly cut and placed in the box. Take him down for me. At the command, all the security guards poured in on Clarence Lester. Lester was shaking with anger. The head inside was none other than his son. He was still wondering why he wasn't present at such an important occasion, but he didn't expect him to appear in front of him in such a way. Jason stared at Clarence Lester in disbelief. How he could not understand who had such a big grudge against him, the Wheelers. Clarence Lester's mouth emerged with a sneer of disdain. Bang, bang, bang! Every sound was accompanied by the fall of a figure. His punches and kicks were too fast, so fast that Clarence Lester did not even react to the fact that all the people fell. This is just the beginning. Clarence Lester took 1 step forward, passing Lester with all the wailing bouncers behind him. All the guests unconsciously backed up. Clarence Lester's eyes were too scary. That is the real battlefield, killing millions of enemies to have the fury. Jason Wheelers, do you know your crime? Like a trial, Clarence Lester stood in front of Jason and looked at him from above. Jason's face flashed a trace of annoyance. He had never been questioned like this. This warrior, have a good talk. The Wheelers. Jason did not finish his words. Clarence Lester choked him with one hand. Kneel down. Confess your sins. Jason involuntarily fell to his knees. He was in his 80s. He had never been insulted like this before. He unconsciously put his hands behind his back, regardless. Fuck him ends first. But it was this one hesitation that cost him his life. Let you die a good death. 10 years ago. West Wind Wheelers. The words fell. Jason's head was twisted off, raw, and fell to the... Clarence Lester turned around, and Lester was already sitting on the floor in shock. Jason, it's gone. A faint sweep of the venue, Clarence Lester dashing away. No one dared to stop. His aura is too heavy. But people know that from today onwards, West Wind, the sky has changed. The Lester's mausoleum, Clarence Lester, placed Jason's head in front of the grave. Drinking a glass of wine alone, no longer the old man happy. And after Clarence Lester left, the entire Wheelers are in chaos. Lester is only Jason's youngest son. This kind of thing he simply does not know how to deal with. Sister, brother, you guys hurry back. Dad, he has taken off his head by someone. A night without words. Early the next morning, Clarence Lester received a call from Martina Burnett. Honey, I've made an appointment with a classmate, and she's agreed to help me. Let me meet with King Black at the ex-Trump group. Where are you? We're going together. I can't wait to get the order for the Burnett's to acknowledge you. On the other end of the line was Martina Burnett's excited voice. Clarence Lester smiled back. Only in front of this woman did he feel that his life was interesting. Wait for me. I'll be right there to pick you up. Downstairs of ex-Trump group, Martina Burnett called her classmate with an excited face. Shortly after, a woman of some beauty appeared in front of them. When she saw Martina Burnett, her face was unstoppably surprised. Martina, you... When Martina Burnett called her yesterday, she didn't think it was a good idea for an ugly woman not to stay at home and come out to scare people. Until she sent her a photo, she couldn't believe it, and it wasn't until we met that she finally confirmed that Martina Burnett wasn't the same Martina Burnett she remembered. I'm so happy you've recovered. Martina Burnett glanced happily at Clarence Lester. Thank you so much. I don't know what I would have done if it weren't for you. A light smile appeared on Margaret Ramirez's face. Let's go. We need not let the manager know before we see the chairman. Clarence Lester's brow furrowed slightly. Did he not make himself clear enough, or did King Black put up a fight? Wouldn't he come to the reception personally? Looking at Margaret Ramirez, he suddenly realized, and a cold smile gradually appeared on his face. At the same time, the whispered words of Margaret Ramirez in front of him also reached Martina Burnett's ears. Martina, to tell you the truth, it is impossible for you, the Burnetts, to get an order from X-Trump Group. But our manager admires you very much, and as long as you are willing to make a little sacrifice, he will introduce you to King Black. Chapter 6. The Good Intentions of a Female Classmate. What do you mean by that? Martina Burnett flinched and opened her mouth to ask. Margaret Ramirez glanced at Clarence Lester next to Martina Burnett with disdain in his eyes and turned his head arrogantly. Martina, now that your looks have been restored, with your current looks, what kind of boss rich man can't find? Why should you take advantage of this poor man for nothing? Want a contact? It's easy as long as you're willing to exchange your body. Margaret Ramirez is slightly curved. Psychological flash is a trace of sinister. No matter where you go, the former Martina Burnett is the focus, and she is just the linear. I thought she was disfigured and would never be well again, but I didn't expect her to regain her looks. Still want to be a goddess, admired by millions? Today, I will ruin you. Ex-Trump's King Black is not a good guy, and if Martina Burnett falls into his hands, she will be out of her league. Martina Ramirez, what do you take me for? I'm married, and this is never going to happen. Martina Burnett blushed, took a step back, and refused. Sensing Martina Burnett's emotional state, Clarence Lester stepped forward and gently put his arm around her. Honey, ignore her. We'll talk to the chairman of X-Trump directly later. Margaret Ramirez could not help but puff out a smile when she saw the two move intimately and heard the words coming out of Clarence Lester's mouth. Ha ha! Martina, although you are well, your brain needs to be looked at. Finding such a silly man, who does she think he is, and going to talk directly to the board's chairman? Martina Burnett, if it weren't for the fact that you're an old classmate, you'd think I'd be kind enough to help introduce you. You don't have to look at what kind of status you have. Anyway, I'll tell you my point of view today. If you want to cooperate with us, King Black, no way. Margaret Ramirez said, twisted his waist, and left. Martina Burnett turned to Clarence Lester, her eyes covered in mist, forcing herself to keep the tears from falling. It's my fault. I'm useless. I didn't help you. I'm sorry. As she spoke, Martina's author remembered the indifference of the Burnetts for, therefore, many years and also the tenderness of the person before her. She has so many years of the world she has longed to let go. This time, she doesn't wish to give up. She desires to induce the X-Trump cluster contract, though there's only a touch of hope. She needs to use all her strength because she does not want to give up the person before her. Wife, you do not need to be sad. This X-Trump group's contract is their chairman's word. This kind of small fish and shrimp words. You do not need to put in appreciation. You will be able to sign the contract of X-Trump Group. Clarence Lester stroked Martina Burnett's head. Martina Burnett nodded unconsciously. For some reason, the man's words were like a pipe dream. But Martina Burnett somehow felt convinced. Ha ha! What an ungrateful bastard. At that moment, a middle-aged man with a big belly and greasy face strolled. Levon White. Look, this is Martina Burnett. I was telling you about yesterday. Levon White followed Margaret Ramirez's finger and looked at Martina Burnett. With just a glance, Levon White's gaze immediately cannot move. He has seen many beautiful women. Still, this Martina Burnett is definitely the best of the best. On the appearance of temperament, like a hibiscus of water, a good waist and grasp. Look at the dumbfounded. Margaret Ramirez gathered towards the side of the middle-aged man. A flattering face. Levon White, this is Martina Burnett. Just now, I have said, but people simply do not put Levon White you in the eye. Levon White heard a face of disdain. He ex-Trump Group executives want to climb his number of women is unclear. Some women pretend to be reserved after learning that their power is not all that flies and can be driven away. He has seen a lot of these tricks. Margaret Ramirez came to Martina Burnett and sneered. Martina, Levon White, I have found for you, for the sake of our classmates, remind you a word this time. You, the Burnetts, want to cooperate? Orders must go through Levon White's hands. Martina Burnett's face turned red with anger. Margaret Ramirez, I'm married. Stop it. Margaret Ramirez said without concern. Martina Burnett, you do not give shame. Offended King Black. You, the Burnetts in the future, do not want to mix in this black hallows. In the future, do not say I am a classmate. Did I not warn you? Margaret Ramirez was about to say something else to Levon White, stepped forward and snickered. Come on. It's just some trick to get away with it. Martina doesn't need to act. Levon White finished his words and directly touched Martina Burnett's face. Halfway out, the arm was suddenly grabbed by a pair of giant hands. Clarence Lester's sunken face coldly said, You dare to touch my wife's face? These hands do not need it. Levon White, looking at Clarence Lester with a contemptuous face, Bastard, do not go back to look at yourself in the mirror. What are you, a poor man who dares to speak out against the executives of X-Trump Group? Don't say I didn't give you a chance. Immediately, go to the hotel across the street and get a room for me. Directly report my name, and later I will show you how to conquer your wife in bed. Ramirez saw Clarence Lester's sullen face and did not say anything, thinking that the other party was scared, silly, and snickered. This punk probably wants to see how King Black is majestic, too. I guess King Black wouldn't mind more than one audience. As he spoke, Margaret Ramirez threw another wink at King Black. Bastard, don't go yet. For the sake of it's your wife. I don't think you want to suffer her. Give her a better suit. Clarence Lester's face is expressionless. The Lord of Lindau naturally will not bother to argue with this kind of mole. Levon White, is it? I just want to ask, this ex-Trump group is your chairman King's Black decision? Or you, Levon White's decision? When Levon White heard this, his face sank. King Black's name can be called whatever you want. Who is in charge of X-Trump Group is not your business. But regarding your wife's contract, I'll put my words here. If I don't agree, it's useless for you to find anyone. Are you sure? Clarence Lester's mouth curled up in a smile. Martina Burnett sensed that the atmosphere was not right, so she pulled Clarence Lester with her tiny hand, deeply afraid that the two sides would start a conflict. Clarence Lester took her hand and gestured for her to take it easy. Don't mind them. Let's go straight to see the chairman. Seeing that Clarence Lester did not know any better, and even presumed to go directly to the chairman, Levon White instantly stepped in front of the two. Slow down. Who do you think you bastard is? Do you want to see the chairman of X-Trump just because you want to see him? Did you get my permission? Levon White did not expect this punk in front of him to dare to face in front of the crowd, and suddenly his face could not stand up. Now, he just watched to teach the bastard a lesson. Ex-Trump chairman's office. King Black failed to dare to travel to any place in the morning, waiting in the workplace for the Lord to come back to the door, waiting for Clarence Lester to come to the door. He wanted to go to the first floor lobby to see the situation. When he arrived at the lobby, he found Levon White in the merchandising department arguing with somebody. King Black frowned. This Levon White also does not see today. If the Lord comes to the door and his wife later sees the scene, what will it look like? King Black walked over, about to get angry when he saw the man stopped by Levon White. After seeing Clarence Lester's face, King Black instantly froze. His mouth was long and his face was bloodless.